It's the Let's Call for Plastisol, competition barely. Come discuss the field with your host Christy and Jeremy. Have a drink, kick your feet up, watch the ink, and get ready for a motion. Notice hearing what you think. Shout out, Monarch Color, Blue Ridge, they're the best. Core Kim hold it down like the automatic press. BMI, they've been sticking with our team. Hey, you know that they are go-to for whenever that we need. Last call, Plastisol, last call. The last call, Plastisol, last call. Last call, Plastisol, last call. The last call, Plastisol.
Hey everybody, it's Jeremy from Last Call for Plastisol. And before we hop into that episode, we wanted to talk real quick about our sponsors. Our first one is Monarch Color. We use Monarch Color for our screen printing shop. We use their Apocalypse series because of the low bleed properties. It's worked great for us. It's a very versatile ink, and we love their mixing system. So check out Ian the gang at monarchcolor.com. Our next sponsor is Corchem Chemicals. When you're thinking of press washes, dip tank solutions, ink removers, haze removers, degradants, degreasers, all that fun stuff that you need for your shop, never look past Corchem Chemicals. They have everything you need for your shop. They're friendly to the environment, and they work great, which is most important. So check out Jason and the gang at core-chem.com. And now, on with the show. Hey, everybody, it's Jeremy.
And Christy from Last Call for Plastisol. And today, we have the pleasure of having Austin Warren from Sunday Cool
and
Stacks.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
We're not drinking. It's too early in the morning, but thanks for being here, Austin.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
So, Austin, there's a lot of things that you got going on. One of the things majorly with us is you're helping us out with Monday, but I don't want to get into that first. Let's get into your background a little bit and kind of figure out how you got into screen printing and just kind of give us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of long story short is I was up in college in Nashville competing in track, and I came home for a summer, and one of my best friends from high school, who we'll get into it, probably later, but Sunday Cool has a really big social media presence, and one being the Ninjas Are Butterflies podcast, which is absolutely blown up. I think 1.3 million followers or something crazy.
Oh, wow.
But that is actually, his name's Josh, and he's Sunday Cool's owner's son, but we grew up in high school together. They were actually printing t-shirts for a company called PureFlix out in California. PureFlix was the one doing all the faith-based films, like God's Not Dead. Anyway, they had a huge order that came in this summer. So Josh, hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want a summer job? We're just printing some t-shirts." Nothing more than that. Well, I started printing t-shirts with them, and it was just three of us. And like I said, long story short, I ended up not going back to college. I did finish my degree online, but stayed there and kind of just worked through that big order, and then it was the next big order, and then the next big order. And then Josh and his brother actually started a t-shirt company called Outhouse Tees, and we were just a contract printer, so we were working with different people like Performa and whatnot. And then Josh's dad, Steve, who now owns Sunday Cool, started Sunday Cool, and he has a background in screen printing. He used to run a company called U Stuff, and did that, I think, since 95, and then I think sold in 2010 or 2011 and kind of just took a break, then got back into it. Well, around that time, he kind of merged his kids' business, Outhouse Tees, and Sunday Cool, and then I got to start working for them. Uniquely, though, Steve recruited me from Outhouse Tees to join Sunday Cool before they were together. So it was kind of Steve and I, trying to figure out Sunday Cool, and then, a few weeks later we merged the two together. And from there, it was history. That was in 2016, 2017 when we started Sunday Cool. Like I said, it was just 2-3 of us. And then I think by 2020, we had about 115 employees.
Oh, wow.
And the business had just
How many did you just say?
I think in 2020, we had about 110.
Holy cow.
In 2023, I think we maxed out at 147 or 150 something employees. So just a crazy, crazy journey.
Yeah.
Went from printing, literally probably 900 shirts a month to, 160 to 170,000 shirts a month. It just blew up. It kind of a crazy, just a crazy, crazy thing that happened. But anyway, and I got the unique experience of starting, all the way from the college kid, just reclaiming screens, honestly, detaping and reclaiming screens. And then, jumping into purchasing when it was needed, and, did a long stint in sales, but then really, really found a gift in kind of just efficiencies, which kind of led me more towards the operations side and logistics side of the business, which just became a huge need for us, because as we were growing just like crazy, the need to be able to produce product as fast and as efficient, all with the 72-hour promise turnaround, really required a lot of attention on the logistics and efficiency side. So pretty much sums it up. And then here, I guess about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I decided to start my own company, and that's where Stacked comes in. And the idea there was to kind of a dream of mine to start my own company, but the dream was to be able to go into other businesses and help them accomplish some of these efficiency models that, I helped develop at Sunday Cool, and just see if I could bless and help other businesses in that arena.
Okay, so there's this book that I read that's really interesting to me. It's called 10 Times is Easier Than 2 Times. Have you heard of it before?
I have not.
It's so basic concept is it's easier to grow your business 10 times than just double it, like have a 10 times growth. And it sounds like that's kind of what you guys experienced. But in order to get there, you have to think in that way. We're not just trying to double. We're trying to go 10 times where we were. So like, what kind of things do you think were pivotal in that exponential growth for you guys?
Yeah, so a few things, and it's kind of fundamental when I'm talking to businesses, is that, well, there's a few things. A few principles is that you always want to get your operations in line before you go show yourself to the world, because you only get one shot at a first impression. Mm-hmm. And a big mistake people do is they focus in on all the leads, getting all the new business, and then you can't produce it or you can't fulfill whatever that promise is, can really stain your reputation up front. So I would say the first thing is just get your house in order, if you will, so that when the business does come, you can get it out efficiently. The second thing that was kind of key to our success was everything was focused on the customer experience. So understanding our buyer and what they were looking for, and just being able to provide them service on their timeline and not ours. And it's little principles like, if it's 4:59 in the afternoon and the phone rings, 90% of people are going to let that go to voicemail and worry about it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But it was just this philosophy at 4:59, everybody in the company, if they hear the phone ring, they ought to be racing to it. And it's not just because it's revenue on the other end of that line. It's because there is a real need that is calling in on the other side. And we just had this principle that we wanted to be on the other end of that, servicing the need of the client. So the two things I would say is make sure your operation is intact before you get business. And then for us, it was focus on the customer, not on ourselves.
Yeah, I think that those are really good points. The first one that was really interesting to me was have your house in order before you go for it. Like, I think as screen printers, as creatives, like this industry as a whole, we kind of just like fake it till we make it. And we're like,
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that.
1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm guilty. I started in my house, and we're like, can we even generate a salary with this hobby that we started? But you guys seem like you took it as a business from the start and were successful doing that.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think there's this principle out there called blue ocean strategy. And how do you separate yourself? Because it's just like an entrepreneurial dream, right? Everybody thinks that everything's already been created, so it's a dog eat dog world. And I think that's very true with the screen printing market, right? Everybody prints t-shirt, everybody does it. So what are you going to do that's going to differentiate yourself from the market? And I think when we could have a week-long leadership meeting, and all we're trying to do is answer that question. Because if businesses can answer that question in such a competitive market, what are you going to do that's different than the competition? I mean, that's what you go market yourself on, right? Because we all know that our customers in the screen printing world, if you will, they need t-shirts, right? They need custom t-shirts. So you can't differentiate yourself there. But it's the service you provide. It's the add-ons and the knickknacks that you provide. It's the perception that you give, the outside world. And that's what we did with the YouTube videos. So when we blew up at Sunday Cool, we did zero marketing about promoting custom t-shirts. So if you go back to our early days, we had this Carl character, and we work within the church. So we knew that our buyers were youth pastors in the church. So what did we do? We created video content that the youth pastors could then go share with their students. Okay. And what we saw was that when we provided a resource to our ultimately buyer, if you will, that they got to go then relate to their kids, who in our case was ultimately the end consumer of the t-shirt we were wearing. That is how we made the connection with our buyer. So we never once promoted, get a t-shirt, or here's a sale, or, this or that. It was always focused on what can we provide our customer to be the hero in their story. And that's just something the video that kind of put us on the map was when these guys did a how to speak Gen Z language.
Yeah.
It ended up getting like 7.5 million views.
Oh my gosh.
And Sunday Cool wasn't mentioned one time.
Yeah.
It was just crazy, but it was youth pastors were learning all these words like yeet and all this, crazy stuff.
We actually had a conversation about that at my dinner table last night, and my kids said we're not allowed to say these words.
It's crazy, right?
As adults.
So, yeah.
So you mentioned that you were in, you service churches, and so obviously that's the Sunday Cool. So that's a niche for you guys. So I see, did you dive into that niche at the jump, or how did that, or were you printing for plumbers?
Steve, the owner of it, he was a youth pastor. So when he started in 95, 96, he was a youth pastor and just had a heart for youth pastors. Because in the church world, youth pastors, if you will, are kind of like the runt, right? They're not the senior pastor. They're called glorified babysitters, all these things. But these people, they're showing up to the kids' school. They're showing up. They're part of their life. And, they don't make a lot of money. Just had a heart for these people. And what we knew in the church from the business side is that for youth groups, every single event that a youth group does, they buy apparel for. Yeah. So how can we, knowing that, how can we take that off of their crazy busy schedule and just provide, you tell us what you want and then you go do ministry and we'll worry about your apparel needs. So just a heart for serving and a heart for ministry is kind of where that niche came from.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you got your niche, and then you've got your targeted marketing, right?
Yep.
From that point forward. And then when did the 72-hour turnaround come into play? Was that that from the jump as well?
From the jump as well. And that's been when you put yourself out there like that. And that's the other thing with the church market, but I think it's the market in general, is that buyers are procrastinators, right? And
Yeah.
instead that going into it, so just provide them a service where they can be that procrastinator and you can be the hero in their story once again. If not, every time we would be working with somebody, we would always be trying to get an exception on a rush job, if you will. So we just said 72-hour turnaround. That's going to be our standard. We're going to hold to it, and that is one of the things though that made the rapid growth a challenge.
I could see that. Yeah,
keeping up with that 72-hour turnaround.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So do you think, because you guys had that quick turnaround and such a high volume, do you think as like your roots of starting out in contract printing helped with that transition to kind of that faster pace? Like you got to turn, because I know contract printers tend to have to do things a lot quicker and think about efficiencies more than like a normal screen printer.
Yes and no. I think the lesson learned with just doing contract printing at the beginning, and granted, it was such a small operation with the contract printing side. The biggest thing we learned with contract printing is honestly just how to work together as a team.
Okay.
Because 3 people in a shop, so we're all rotating, that helped me tremendously, is because I got to learn on the ground level pretty much every single function in the shop. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were thrilled the day that we got to cancel all of our contract printing deals. Yeah. It's like working for somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Jeremy, you have a question?
Yeah. So, the dog just walked in on me. So, so I let him in because him scratching at the door would not be good. But, yeah. So, all right. So I've been to your location. I've seen how 72-hour turnaround works for you guys. Obviously, you said you became very good at efficiencies, right?
Yeah.
Probably by trial by fire in that case, having to start at 72-hour turnaround and then just figure it out as you go. How long did it take you to figure out like the right sauce, the secret sauce to get you going?
Yeah, and I would say this for everybody, the screen printing industry, but just business in general. When you're growing, you are going to hit a point where it feels like you got to make a change, or this ship is going down, and you're kind of hard pressed to do it. Well, we ran into that. I think it was 2019. We were using Printavo at the time, so we were using Pipedrive as our CRM. We're using Printavo as, what Printavo is. And we were running, at the time, Printavo didn't have any type of, I think now they have the auto scheduler, it's called.
Power scheduler.
The power scheduler. And it's never, it's a hard tool to use, especially with volume. So we had everything in a Google Calendar, right? So 2019, we were looking at a schedule that had about 40 jobs a day on it, and the Google Calendar got so you couldn't even read what the jobs were.
Yeah.
So we hit this inflection point where it's like, we got to get off of this, or we're going to start missing orders and not knowing where the heck they landed. So that forced the hand. So we started looking. We ended up landing with Monday.com, and the rest is history. Jeremy, to answer the question specifically, we found Monday.com pretty quickly.
Okay.
The dialing in the secret sauce part of it is, that's been 7, 8, 9, whatever, 7 years ago, is we're still dialing that in every single day. But it took about a month, I would say probably a month, to get that transition going. From migrating from Google Calendar to Monday. But the big difference was Google Calendar was completely manual, right? So we were manually pulling jobs and putting them on a Google Calendar. And the solution that we worked up was everything is flowing into Monday, automatically, directly from Printavo, giving us that calendar view. And I think you guys, have seen that with with how you guys are utilizing Monday.
Yeah.
But in our business, we hit a few of those inflection type points where it's like we got to make a change, or things aren't looking good.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like the Monday.com, when Jeremy went down to Sunday Cool and then brought that back to our shop, we kind of like, when we were all discussing it and he was selling it to the ownership team, it was kind of like, okay, this is going to solve our production problems that we're having. And what we've learned over a year of implementing it is it's sped us up quite a bit. But it is, like you said, we have to keep tweaking what we're doing. Absolutely. Because as we grow, and over the year, I've seen our ownership group mindset change of like, let's find the solution and be done with it and not have to make another solution later, as like, no, this is continuous, because a business that is growing at the rate that we're growing, and you guys grew even faster than us, like we're going to have to constantly tweak. And that's just Absolutely. The way it's going to be. So it's kind of a mindset shift of, no, this is always going to be a work in progress, and it's okay.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Once you acknowledge that it's ever evolving, staying on top of it, creating little efficiencies at every step of the way in your process. Over the course of a year, when you saved a second on 100 tasks a day, that could add up significantly in the course of a year.
Yeah. So Jeremy, do you want to talk about when you went down to Sunday Cool and like how you guys you came to the realization that we needed a production scheduler tracker?
Sure. Well, originally I saw another shop have it, and I said, "Where did you get that from?" And they were like, "Oh, we don't know how to use it yet. We just got to implement it. There's this guy that my owner knows, blah, blah, blah." So I contacted their owner, met Austin over the phone, and he was like telling me about it, but I wasn't 100% sold, and I needed your guys' input. So we just happened to go down there for my son, who's stationed down there in the Coast Guard, and I was like, "Hey, can I stop by while I'm there? I just want to see what you got going on." Austin gladly allowed me to come into Sunday Cool, and I got there, and it's this warehouse right next to a lake, a big lake, and all the doors are open. And I walk in, and they're running water base, and it blew my mind because I've run water base before, and the doors are open, and it's really humid. I guess being by a lake really helps with that, because the humidity actually helps the ink. But it was just crazy to see that they're flinging around water base, not on like a couple presses like us, but like, I don't know, how many presses do you have? Like,
we have seven full automatics, and then a few little ones around the shop.
And so I saw that, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is insane. And there's employees flying in there. So we talked about the 72-hour turnaround right away, and I saw it immediately walking in. There's this loader just flying. I mean, he was super fast. They had a loader and a puller, and these. I don't want to get too much into it, but like the way they stacked their carts and set up their jobs, they just basically had efficiencies dialed down to where when one job stopped, they went right to another job on the same press without stopping. It was like they just moved another cart over, switched their program real quick. Their downtime was like insanely short. And Austin explained that to me as they do all the setups early on, get all their approvals first, and then they just run with it. But like, it's crazy to even think about the fact that they let water base sit for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, as they do their first press or their first impression, like to get their artwork approval or whatever. But then it just sits. So I was like, this is voodoo. This is mind blowing. I don't know how they're doing all this stuff. And then, but again, like, you start to see it. He walks me in. They take amazing care of, like, they're really formulating all their water-based inks. They got a really cool setup for that. All their employees are 100% on board, and they fly through everything. And it seems like even their reclaim was outside. All their reclaim was outside. So can you imagine, like, going and washing screens out on the side of the building, there was just cool things going on there that I was like, I didn't know you could do that, like, and then, it blew me away in the efficiencies right away. And then he kind of showed me all the different screens that were around the business there that had like where they're at in the schedule. And I'm like, he's like, we got like 146 jobs on, and we're thinking about letting everybody go early today because it's Friday. And I'm like, you still have 146 jobs left and you're letting people go early? Like, holy cow, but he was like, yeah. I just blew my mind. So there's a lot of things there that I was like, all right, that's where I was like, how is this possible? And you're like, we're on top of every single step throughout the entire process, and everybody's running up their own version of a Monday board, but it's all feeding into one, right? And then you're just like, and everybody knows when everybody needs to do something and when it's done, and it just flies. And it was really impressive to watch and see. So seeing it in action was like the biggest thing for me. Was like, all right, I see that how they're using these, just the flow of things, right? It's not necessarily, they're not doing anything magical. They're still printing T-shirts.
Yep.
They're just doing it in a really, really efficient way. And Monday is the tool they're using to get them to communicate. And then that's what it boils down to, is just like really effective communication. And so how that works in Monday is how they were able to really control the chaos, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it is. Controlled chaos.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any input on that, Austin? I mean, did I?
No, yeah.
It,
I mean, you summed it up pretty well. I think when you're running that fast, right? There can be a slippery slope, right? You don't want to go too fast where you're sacrificing quality. Right, so it was finding that balance, right? If you print 1,000 shirts an hour, on a press, and all of them are screwed up, you gain nothing. You just wasted a ton of money.
You lost stuff.
Yeah, you lost it. So dialing that in was most important. So Jeremy, kind of what you witnessed was what we call control chaos, right? Everybody's moving quick, but they're not moving too fast, and it's almost like you're like working a kitchen, right? Everybody's running around, but nobody's hitting each other. Food's not falling on the ground. The meals are being served, and it tastes great. That's kind of the principle. I would say Monday was the tool for us that allowed for this stuff to happen. But what happened first was everybody on the floor knows what they do and what they're responsible for. And we were very strict about, you focus on that and be the best at that. And don't, support the person next to you, but the person next to you has their own set of tasks and everything. And I'll kind of give, like, in my philosophy with finding efficiencies, right? I go through the shop and I'm looking at every single thing that takes time. And I know that sounds crazy, and this is a great exercise. Go through your shop and write down everything that takes time. And that's a crazy thing. Well, everything takes time, right? It takes time for me to walk to the bathroom or do this or that. But take those times, and then you guys go sit around a table as a leadership team and go through the list of all 50 things in your shop that take time. And let's say, let's pick this one. And as a leadership group, what can we do over the next 2 or 3 weeks where we could take this time, X, whatever it is, and cut it in half, right? And you do that times 50, and I'll give you kind of an example of what that looks like. Jeremy, you mentioned that, we have everything set up on a press, and, we're running back to back to back. I love math and statistics, so that's probably, but anyway, you don't have to know math to do this exercise. When you're curing water base, our dwell time in the dryer is about 1 minute, 15 seconds or so, right? So if we're doing one approval at a time, we're going to print that sample test and we're going to run it down the dryer. Well, that's 1 minute 15. Let's just call it a minute for math's sake, right? And we're doing 150, let's do 120 jobs a day. just on waiting for one t-shirt to come down the dryer for approval is going to be 120 minutes. So I have, if I'm printing 1,000 shirts an hour and I'm using 2 hours a day of the shop just waiting on one shirt for each job to come down to approval, I'm printing 1,000 impressions an hour. I just missed out on 2,000 impressions because I was waiting on one t-shirt per job to come down the dryer. So what did we do? That came up, and or how can, we can't speed the dryer up, but what can we do? We can run, if we can get 5 jobs set up on a press, we'll do test prints for all 5 jobs on the press, and we'll run them down the dryer at the same time. So we're going to get all of our approvals at one time. The setup time is the same because you still have to set up 5 jobs, whether you do it in bulk or do it individually. It still has to revolve around, the press 5 times for each, So all those things, but all we're going to do is we're going to put all 5 shirts on the dryer at the same time. And effectively what we've done with that one efficiency is that we have cut our hour and 20 minutes divided by 5, right? So we've gained back whatever that comes out to, but we've gained back about the opportunity to print another 1,400 impressions in a day. And what we did with that is that principle and philosophy is just, it's everywhere in our business. You talked about the reclaim being outside. That's on purpose. That because of the flow of our workshop is that, you saw the door and the reclaim, and then you go out once those get cleaned, especially in the summer, it's hot. So they dry faster right there with the sun beaming down on them. And then they're going back right into pre-press. So we just did that across our business is find something that you can save 5 minutes on.
Yeah.
And it's worth it.
The other thing about getting all your approvals at once is the person that's approving, you're stopping them from their workflow every time you're going to get that approval. So doing them all at once, you're only stopping them from their job once to do the approval. So you're speeding up there too. I really like that.
Yeah. It's a little stuff like that. And the Monday portion of it was that we just need a way to see all of this stuff that we're doing so everybody can be on the same page. And that's what we did. Everything that we were doing physically, manually on the floor, how can we get that into a board or a place, if you will, where our sales rep in Georgia can look at our Monday schedule and know within a pretty good level of confidence what's happening in our facility at any given time.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is that really sold me on it was that you started to mention that you had so many graphic artists when you first started. You got really, really big. You said you peaked at one point, right? You got really, really big. You had a ton of graphic artists, a ton of employees. And then when you set these things in place and started improving these efficiencies, like you said, then your hire rate went down. You started to dial in your team more and more and more. And so that you were reducing the amount of people it took because you were going so much faster. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what most shops find themselves doing. We're guilty of it. And right before we did this, we were guilty of we need 2 more catchers because we're getting busy. Yep. Or we need to, we were always hiring more people to kind of pick up the slack of where we were failing. Right. And then we implemented this and realized we could do it with even less people than we have. Yep. And that was a game changer too. That's where I was here's the opportunity to really not only do lean manufacturing, like you're saying, and speed up processes and things, but then also be more lean in our team.
Yeah. I would say, to give an example of that, Steve Hooper's oldest son, his name's Taylor. He's now the ops director there at Sunday Cool. But him and I don't know, he's my buddy. We work really, really well together. There was a time, I think it was in 2020, I don't remember, 2019, 2020. We hit our busy season, which is May and June, and it's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts there. but we hit that inflection point, Christy, like we talked at the beginning, is you're gonna have a few points in your business where it's like, oh crap, crap's about to hit the fan. We're just falling behind in the schedule. Well, Taylor and myself, kind of teamed up on this, and Taylor was really focused on, dude, he knows his way around a press like nobody's business. I mean, just like, those types of guys that just get up there under the press and just somehow know what to do. Anyway, I was like, Taylor, you focus on this and let me just focus on the logistics side of it, but we'll team up and do this together, which is super important to have both of those types of people on your team. But anyway, we went out there. The first thing we did, we were working double shifts, or we had 2 shifts, so day shift, night shift. And we were doing about 43 jobs a day, which is decent, but we were selling about 90 a day. So, within a week, we're 250 jobs in the hole. Oh, wow. So Taylor and I, we go out there and, Taylor, you keep the presses rolling, I'll work on the efficiencies. Well, within a week, the first day actually that we got out there is we cut the second shift. So, not being proud of it, but I think we let go of about 14 people in one day, which was just crazy. Like, we're falling behind and we're letting people go. Long story short, we went to one shift. We had a Braveheart, rally moment. And within a week, we're doing 96 jobs a day. So we more than doubled our daily output with half the staff. And I say that it's a cool story, but these types of efficiencies in your shop, and this is why I started Stacked. These types of efficiencies in your shop, they don't come through a 6-week consulting program plan. They don't come through. No, they're right underneath your nose. And sometimes you just don't see them because you're so close to your business. And that everybody goes through that. But the idea with Stacked was that how can I come into your business and see those things that are potentially right underneath your nose and get your business efficient, get your business from 47 to 96, and whatever that's related to. It could be jobs, but it could be to the real estate business you're running. It doesn't really matter. But how can we go from 40, 43, 44 to 96 within a week, right? And it's not going to happen with everybody, but I think most businesses would be okay going from 43 to 52 or 43 to 47, right?
Sure.
It's just that there's things that are happening in your business that maybe moving this person here or doing this or whatever could make a significant change. And I'm just a believer of that because I've seen it happen at Sunday Cool. I've seen it a lot just in the past 8 months with some of the people I've had the opportunity to work with, where it's just one little thing maybe that is that's holding you back.
So Austin, and I'm going to mention this one thing that we did in sales, because I know we've been talking a lot about production, but I know you love this too. One thing that we saw as an inflection point in sales is gathering information from clients and having everybody on the sales team have that information without one person having to disseminate that information. So we implemented a jot form, and I know you love the jot form too for customer intake. And you guys, it's a game changer for sales and like getting things done efficiently. You want to talk about your jot form, Austin?
Yeah. So I love jot form. It's so intuitive and it connects to so many things. But the principle that I had with jot form is there's so much data that especially in the screen printing world that we're collecting from our customer. That's the same type of stuff every time, right?
Yep.
The only thing with email is that it requires you to do the same thing the exact way every time, which is not humanly possible, right?
Possible, yeah.
So how can you find a way in your business, so those standard things that you're normally collecting, whether it be sizes or artwork or requests, whatever it be, how can we get that into a form so that we don't have to worry about keying it in and potentially copying and pasting the wrong thing? So that was the need for Jotform. So we just found areas where we can collect that information. But then the nice part about it was that, with various API calls and connections and all that stuff, is that we could send that information to any of the systems that where we needed that data housed. Huge efficiencies within that.
Yeah. So the other thing that I want to say about Jeremy implementing this production scheduler that you worked with him on is it completely changed the vibe in our shop. We went from from my perspective in sales, because I'm not in production a lot, but like we would go into the production floor and everybody was just like on busy season. Everybody was just like frazzled. Did this happen? Did this happen? Oh, we're missing a shirt. Oh, we're missing this. We're missing this piece of this order, this piece of this order. It took the vibe from that, like, to, it's like kumbaya, like eerily kumbaya back there, because everything is just so organized. And this, I think the key to all of it was the splitting of the jobs, where one person is responsible for making sure those screens are done, and it doesn't even go to the next person until the screens are done. Or the shirts, the receiving person is in charge of receiving the shirts, and like unless they give the check off, the next person isn't even able to do their job yet. Whereas before, when we were just running through Printavo, those checks and balances of everything, it wasn't possible. And so everybody was covering everybody's butt, which unless everybody was on top of it every day, it was making that frantic, like, you guys, we miss this, we miss this, we miss this. And that's completely gone. Like,
it is. Yeah.
The vibe back there is like, are we busy? I don't even know.
Yeah. There's a couple things like there, like the printers were finding themselves, like, there was a screen guy, but if the screen guy didn't get around to burning the screens, or if the art guy didn't get around to printing the films to burn the screens, like there was like this blame game going on. And like, and what it boiled down to was we were just, the printers were going and burning their own screens. They were washing out their own screens, taping their own screens, and setting up their jobs and mixing their own ink. Like, because other people were dropping the ball. Like they were getting caught up in other things, right? Like it wasn't a priority to them what the printer had to do. It was only a priority, and I was like, all right, so this is where this changed the game, because I told Screen Room, hey, you have to use this Monday board, and you can only burn screens when it says you can burn, ready to burn, right? And otherwise you're reclaiming and you're staying on top of coding and doing all that other stuff. And then, hey, so then what she started to do was like always check her board to see if there was any screens to burn, and she would do that first. Well, she was doing it 3 or 4 days in advance now. Right? Instead of waiting same day. Right. And she's like, I'm caught up. We gamified it pretty much. It is like a game to her. And she loved the gamifying side of things, where she was just like waiting for it to hit. There it is. I'm after it. Right. And it happened the same way in receiving. Like we had a staging girl that kind of put things on carts, and like the screens were done 3 days in advance. So they're sitting on a cart, like itching to be on like with shirts with them, right? And like that finishing girl was like, I need my shirts. It's on if as soon as I receive these shirts, then production was like, hey, let me know as soon as you need those shirts. As soon as you get those shirts, I can go ahead with my job, right? And it was like, I mean, they were as soon as the shirts hit the door, they were coming straight out of a box. No longer back in the box and on a shelf. They were just going straight to a cart, straight to the production floor, and straight back out to finishing and on the shelf ready for pickup, like in hours. Like as soon as they hit the door, and I'm like, holy cow, we just did something special here, right? Like, and then we assigned somebody specific just to do ink, and started to share jobs. Hey, let's cross train, let's do this, let's do that. And I mean, it totally freed up the vibe. Like Christy said, it gave everybody confidence that everything else was going to get done. And for the printers, they love it because they literally only have to print. That's it.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
what's funny, I guess for your audience, this is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah.
I've heard. I mean, Jeremy, you've shared, some of the efficiencies gained, but this is the first time I've heard this, and I'm so excited. Like I'm so happy.
Here's clips for you, Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that because I've seen it work before, but just to see it, I've done this with you have Frank on. I've been working with him in his shop, and I've seen some of the efficiencies gained there. But Jeremy, I think the key for what you're describing is that Monday.com has nothing to do with the screen printing industry. Monday.com is not a scheduler, if you will. Monday.com is a way to keep your team organized and on schedule for every department. I mean, for every
It
department.
doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
It's just what's next.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And
we
you've unlocked
saw those
that.
efficiencies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Using you though, of course. I mean, that's, I wouldn't have been able to do this myself because there's this programming side of things that just blows my mind. So, I mean, if you're really good at programming, I would say, yeah, go for it yourself. But if you're not, you need to find somebody that is, because I'm not.
Yeah.
I know I'm not.
But Jeremy, I've seen, I've been in your Monday account over the past week or so. We're working on kind of the art schedule, and the art schedule side. But what I've noticed with you, what you're doing in Monday is you've now once you're in Monday, you've now understood the flow and the different fields and the different things you can do. And I went in there and I saw the production board, and there's just so many different things on there now. And why that's important is because every shop, every company is different, right? You guys say different, you use words differently, and you have different this and different that. And you've customized that to your business, which just further, pushes the point that this is a custom solution for Jeremy and for Christy and their team there at Rock Hill.
Yeah. And I love it, like, to get mushy about it. Like, I like that our employees like to come to work in the back.
Heck yeah.
And this made that possible. So
And,
good on
and
you,
honestly,
Austin.
it's freed up some time to start focusing on other things, like you said. Like, now we're going into, like, hey, like, we instituted we call it, like, our first print protocol. So, like, we're doing that first print not only needs to get approved on, like, a sample shirt, but then it's actually the very first print that comes off on the real shirt. We're getting that secondly approved for location and all that, and then we're hanging that up right in front of the printer's face, so that he's not pulling it off the press, she's not pulling it off the press until it looks exactly like that first print. Like, it can't it can't change.
Yep, that's the standard, right?
That's the standard.
That's what everybody.
So we're now focusing on those things to try to even continue to improve more. Like Christy said, we've improved considerably, but there's more to do. And so, like, now we're trying to really, really dial it in. And we can see mistakes that we made a year ago, and some of them come back to haunt us. I mean, I think a customer returned something from, like, last February or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, how did this pass? And I'm like, well, a year ago it passed. Yep. It wouldn't make it past a certain point at this point now. And then I say that, and then something did. The very next day something did, and you're like, what happened? Well, somebody's, and it ended up being that the art guy forgot to hit something or forgot to do something. And I'm like, that's coming. That's the next change, is now we're going to focus on revamping the art department.
But what was interesting about that is because we have everything so dialed in, ownership was taken. Like, I'll take that.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't think we would have had that before at all.
Yeah, they would have pointed blame at somebody else.
I want to make sure I say this with, it's one really important thing. The biggest asset any company has is its people, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can have 10 presses in your shop, but nobody's running them. What's the point, right? Christy, you hit on something where the employees like to come to work. That gets you excited. Of course it should. That gets you pumped up. That's your business kind of. There it is. But Jeremy, you said gamifying. One of the things we saw when we implemented Monday is a sense of pride in their work, because we publicly displayed everybody's stats, and sometimes that can be taken as like we're pushing everybody's name up on the board. No, these guys and these girls, they want to compete. Like they want to see their, we have widgets, and you saw them in the shop, but we have widgets, on this board, and press one's at this many impressions and this much revenue. And we created this environment where, we'd have a printer, looking over at the other press, like, come on, bro, you suck. Like, look at the board. And, he's answering back like, oh, you just wait, right? And we just turned this into a people love to see their name on the board, but then it just becomes the talk of the town, right? One day the underdog beat the best printer. And that's been one of the best things about Monday for, what I've seen is just the ability to track everything, and then reward and celebrate based on the results. And I love that.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go first.
Well, what I was going to say is that just one more added to that, like our screen room girl, we were like, hey, we need to divide up tasks between our employees even more so that we can free up the art guy more. And so we said the screen room girl, since she's already burning screens, let's teach her how to also print films. We're still on films. So print films. And so she went in there and started to print films, and she's like, hey, can you add to my Monday board and here to give me a notification for when SEPs are completed and do this, and this. And because now that I'm doing this too, I really need it on my Monday board. And I'm like,
so she understands
she
it. That's
totally
good.
got it. Like she's asking now for more accountability.
Yeah.
And that was like, she understands it. So she's bought in 100%, and she's trying to figure out how to make her job faster and easier. And, and so I love that part of it too.
Nobody knows how to make their job faster or better than the people that are actually doing it, right? When you start giving them control and power to speak into their process, they're the subject matter experts. Once that's unlocking a critical piece to this whole thing is that, Jeremy, you know a lot, but it's from this level, whereas the people down there, they know it from a little bit more ground level, which that's a beautiful thing.
It sure is. So, Austin, we're running out of time now, but I want to give you an opportunity to speak to what you offer at Stacks for print shops, and where people can find you if they want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, company is Stacked. My website is stacked.tech, and that's stacked with 2 Ks. I know I'm weird, and it's .tech. So you can find me there. Or probably the easiest way is just to email me, austin@stacked.tech. I do, based on this podcast, I do have quite a bit of experience in the screen printing industry, but just business in general. It's the same principle and philosophy, regardless of your business. And it can be more than just, a Monday.com print out at a Monday integration, but I would love to even just have a conversation with you guys and see if there's any of that low-hanging fruit in your business that we can capitalize on.
Awesome. Well, You guys highly recommend Austin. So.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it. It's an honor being here.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk to Austin right after this podcast or sometime soon, because he's got my art board ready to go, I think, and or at least ready to be programmed a little bit better. So
we are excited about that for sure. So.
It's pretty dope. That was a fun build for me. I just finished it up 2 days ago, I think. Okay. And I think you guys are going to be excited.
Awesome.
So, well, thank you so much, Austin, for your time and for everything you do for us.
No, thank you. And like I think you said on your last time, if you're ever in the Central Florida area, hit up Sunday Cool. And whether it's through me or not, just hit up Sunday Cool, and I think they'd love to give you a tour and show you around. And then ask for Steve Hooper. He is a CEO owner there, just great, and he'll probably take you out to lunch and buy you a meal maybe.
Oh wow,
no, it'd be good.
Great,
yeah.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it, guys.
Take
care, buddy.
Bye.
All right, peace.
Bye.